people learn about manifestation, about awakening spiritually, being able to achieve your dreams, creating your own reality, all of these wonderful statements, if they're not clearly understood, the process behind it, then there will be a particular doubt inside of us. There will be these doubts, worries, and fears almost within our very being of whether these things are really true. Because in some cases people might go as far as to say, it sounds too good to be true all over or entirely. Like, this can never be true. This sounds so great. How can this be true? How can people manifest their own realities, right? So today I wanted to go over a question that deals with this, and I know there's many people out there, including myself initially in 2008, when I took this study serious about the mind, about law of attraction, all these fancy terms about manifesting. Then I can remember vaguely, if I think back on all of it, when I would read books or listen to videos about it, there would be this little voice inside of me that would say, well, this can't be true, or well, who do you think you are that this is true? And I wouldn't think that about the person telling me. I would think that about myself if I started to try and live up to these teachings, where this voice inside of me would constantly make me doubt for a little bit. But one of my mentors, Bob Proctor, back in the time, would also say, well, it's part of your own habitual way of thinking that's causing that, and you can overcome it as you keep studying and applying and experimenting with this for yourself. And that's exactly what I did. And now if I read books about the mind, I don't have that voice anymore. And instead, I recognize a lot of it from experience. So you see, the beliefs that are seemingly so strange and weird at first concerning manifestation, they change around from personal experience. So the more experienced you become, the less you have these worries and silly ideas in your mind that are perhaps holding you back. So in today's question, I wanted to go over one of those that again is general enough for us to discuss, that it might help more people than just one person asking it. So they said, do you sometimes feel silly about your beliefs? Like, what if I'm wrong and none of it is real? I was an atheist for most of my life until I was awakened in 2018 and started to slowly gain faith back. Now I believe in God or a higher power, and it gives me so much strength. I rely on God a lot. I pray when I'm upset. I'm into manifestation and other spiritual practices. But sometimes the thought pops up of, what if it's not true? What if you can't just change your reality and it's all a scam? Does this happen to you? How do you deal with it? Well, first of all, these final questions, right, they don't make a lot of sense if you before that say that you believe in God or a higher power. You see, many people say, I believe in God or a higher power, and they say that based on what they've read or heard other people talk about. So to word this a kind of differently, it would be like, if you say you believe in God, why do you say that you believe in God? And then you should be completely honest with yourself here. Do you actually have experience that could be considered of God? Yes or no? You see, because most people, they don't really have the conscious experience, the awareness of God for themselves. So they're mostly relying on what they read and heard, either in the Bible or any other spiritual teacher. And that's not really true belief, though. That's kind of like blind faith to that extent, I would say. Because this blind faith then obviously leads to these questions. Sometimes the thought pops up, what if it's not true? Why would you say it's not true? If you had the experience of God, how could you say it's not true? Then you're denying yourself, then you're denying your own experience, and that's silly. Now that is really the silly part. Now what if you can't just change your reality and it's all a scam? Well, let's talk about what is reality. Whatever you perceive is to you reality. So basically, sometimes we perceive a reality, a world that we do not like. That's currently our reality. Can we change what we don't like? Yes and no. I mean, there are some countries where this is clearly more difficult, physically speaking. So we can't underestimate that part. But it is still possible to change your perception of a situation, and then your whole reality would be experienced differently. As a matter of fact, when you are dreaming, and you're seeing that dream world where you're totally free and living perhaps in peace and great joy and wealth, etc. This is all spiritually taking place. And in that moment, whether you're aware or not, it doesn't matter. It's still a reality to you. So you see, you can change reality. You have done this all along. People do this every night they go to sleep. They change their reality. So there's clear proof that it is not a scam necessarily. It is just not understood clearly by people, and therefore we still have these worries and doubts. And he asks, does this happen to you? How do you deal with it? Well, it doesn't happen to me anymore. But I'm well aware that if I have a very big goal, for example, for my life, if I were to build some big vision of reaching millions of people around the planet, serving them all, having seminars, doing coaching, doing all this stuff, right? That would be totally different than my current reality as a YouTube content creator. Then I know that it depends a lot on my willingness to also express those desires fully. So if I'm not truly willing to give seminars or do the coaching or travel around the world speaking to audiences, well then it's not really going to change my reality at all. So this whole idea of changing your reality has to be understood that it is all part of a process. You know, you start with a vision of what you want, and then you learn to obey that vision, physically speaking, and build according to that vision. Build your life. Create your life according to that vision as much as you can. And then, yeah, your reality will change around. It's always changing around. Your reality is currently different than when you were a little baby, let's be honest here. So to say that it is a scam makes no sense. But it might seem like a scam if someone says, well, you can change your reality around by imagining it and instantly your whole world reshuffles itself. Well, that sounds a little wild, doesn't it? But yet, if you were asleep, physically speaking, and you enter spiritual realms of consciousness, then I have done that. From personal experience, yes, in those realms you can shuffle reality around at will. That is how it goes in the astral world, they say, in other teachings. Well, I can agree with that. Physically, I wouldn't agree with it necessarily, because we are bound in a way by certain, laws, physically speaking. Although these laws could be overcome, that's what many ancient scriptures talk about, this ability for human beings to overcome the limitations of nature by mind power. But you see, even I have not reached that state yet where I could prove this to you or have experienced it, so I won't really talk about it, because I try to make sure I only talk about things I have experienced for myself, so that they make sense, at least when I talk about them. And it's not just hearsay. So you see, this idea that your beliefs about manifestation, about spirituality are silly, that's only due to a lack of personal experience on the matter. The more you become experienced on these things of manifestation, of the ability of changing your reality around, which happens through a process I mentioned earlier, and then also having visions that are highly spiritual, that you just know are of God. When they occur more and more to you, well, then you can no longer worry about whether it's true or not. The only thing you will notice is that most people simply do not live like this. They do not know this. They do not talk about this. They do not spend any time pursuing any of these studies or activities at all. And then you might feel like a little, like a weird one. You're kind of the strange one amongst the most people, right? That's also how it has been described in many cases. Like, if you're into spirituality, you suddenly start to be the one that people think it's a little strange, or perhaps people would say you're just wise beyond your age. You have all this wisdom, etc. People have said that to me as well. Usually I just kind of, I'm kind of like, okay, well, thanks, I guess. I mean, because it's the supposed wisdom that people think I speak is just my own spiritual awareness flowing with and through me, and it can be the same for them. See, we bear our intuition on matters, and then God talks and communicates through the intuitive faculty of man. And that's how you know more and more, seemingly, deeper things about life, for which people then suddenly call you wise, even though it was accessible to them as well. And again, what is the main ingredient here? Personal experience. So, in all our studies about spirituality and all these wonderful powers of the mind that we hear about, we have to focus on gaining personal experience on these things. on actually understanding the process behind manifestation, on achieving goals that we knew before I imagined it and now it's a reality. I remember it so well, like with some goals I've had over the years. In 2015, for example, before I fall asleep, I would literally pray to God. I would close my eyes and say within my heart, like, it sounds a little desperate, but it still worked anyway. I would be like, please let this succeed. Like, God, please help me succeed with this goal. Because I really want it so much. I want this to become a reality so much. And because I approached certain goals like that, actually, without me even realizing it at the time, the goals started to manifest rapidly sometimes, and things started to move into form. And as they did so, I will admit, I kind of forgot about the fact that I prayed for this at one point. And then, you see, we always walk that risk of becoming a little arrogant and full of ourselves, or at least distracted by the physical success itself, instead of remembering that it was all happening due to spiritual power, due to spiritual awareness and willingness to communicate with God, with the cosmic consciousness of the universe. So again, make that your aim. The more personal experiences you have, the more successes you have with small goals or perhaps big goals in your eyes, the more you will believe in a true sense, where it's no more hearsay, but it's belief based on actual experience. And then you'll no longer have to feel bad or silly or worry about what you're doing, because you already know it works, it is real, so I'll just make use of it. Because why should I now doubt in it? It works, so if you then go back to doubting, it's like you're selling yourself short. You're like going a step backwards, so to speak. And, we all know that's just pointless. So I hope this gave you some insight on how to overcome that state of thinking this is all silly. Again, it's all by personal experience, by actually experimenting, contemplating and working with it every single day. And then it starts to become stronger and more clear for you how this all works. Now, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.